This is a Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. The course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. This course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God.
This is a reading from the Course in Miracles, Chapter 10, The Idols of Sickness. And this is Section 2, The Decision to Forget. Paragraph 1. Unless you first know something, you cannot dissociate it. Knowledge must precede dissociation, so that dissociation is nothing more than a decision to forget. What has been forgotten then appears to be fearful, but only because the dissociation is an attack on truth. You are fearful because you have forgotten, and you have replaced your knowledge by an awareness of dreams because you are afraid of your dissociation, not of what you have dissociated. When what you have dissociated is accepted, it ceases to be fearful. You know, before we go on at all, I just had a conversation with my sister, and she was telling me about a conversation she had with a certain insurance company or whatever. And so she has been on the phone so much talking to people, and she's at home by herself, and she's a very social creature. So she's right now, just a lot of her life has been lived through her phone on the computer, and she deals with a lot of recorded messages. So she was in a conversation with somebody, a real living person, but she thought she was a recording.
Oh, okay.
And so the girl on the other side asked her a question, and my sister gave her a very flippant reply as though she were talking to a recording.
Oh my gosh.
And the girl kind of paused and was kind of not sure what was going on. The body language wasn't correct, right? Because my sister's talking to her like she's a recording. And then my sister woke up, and she realized, wait, that wasn't a recording. And this experience terrified her. Mm. The fact that she could talk to another human being and be in a frame of mind as though that person were a recorded message.
So she had dissociated.
She had dissociated. It doesn't make sense to me when it's saying here that you're afraid because of not of the thing you dissociated, but you're afraid that you dissociated.
Yes.
That's what creates the fear.
Yes.
So only that thing with Marnie is the only time I've ever heard how you can be afraid of a state of mind, not of an object in your field, but afraid of some arbitrary, artificial mental condition you're in.
Yeah. Yeah, if I can fully recognize that I have forgotten, I'm afraid of that I've forgotten. I mean, that does happen. So it says you are fearful because you have forgotten, and you've replaced your knowledge by an awareness of dreams because you're afraid of your dissociation, not of what you have dissociated. The fact that of my dissociation, that I would actually have actually created a situation that I have forgotten and not, I don't remember. That's what makes all of a sudden, it's like, oh my gosh, how could that have ever happened?
Call it meta fear.
Yeah.
It's a meta fear. You know, I'm not afraid of a certain thing. I'm afraid of I'm afraid that I could do that to myself. I'm afraid that I would.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, paragraph 2. Yet to give up the dissociation of reality brings more than merely lack of fear. In this decision lie joy and peace and the glory of creation. I got to read this again. Yet to give up the dissociation of reality brings more than merely a lack of fear. Mm-hmm. In this decision lie joy, peace, and the glory of creation. Offer the Holy Spirit only your willingness to remember, for He retains the knowledge of God and of yourself for you, waiting for your acceptance. Give up gladly everything that would stand in the way of your remembering, for God is in your memory. His voice will tell you that you are part of Him when you are willing to remember Him and know your own reality again. Let nothing in this world delay your remembering of Him, for in this remembering is the knowledge of yourself. You know, as I've said in other places at other times, the funny thing about it is that, well, it's not funny. I really cherish this world. I complain about it. Like I said, I complain about it. But since I have dissociated myself from being in this situation, to be honest with you, this mind of God thing, I don't know what we're talking about. I really don't know what we're talking about.
You kind of do.
Well, the Course would say that I have the memory somewhere inside, but the block against it is so effective. I don't know how to even position myself towards it. I mean, I know what ice cream is. I know what going to a baseball game is.
It says right there, your willingness, that little willingness to remember.
The willingness to remember. That's about the willingness. Are you willing?
Are you willing?
But in that sense, you've seen these people that have had, they've been in a car accident.
You can't pretend willingness. You're either willing or you're not.
Well, I mean, you've got a person, and they've got amnesia, and they can't remember all these people. And he's got this person, this amnesiac, has all these people staring at him, going, "Don't you remember me? I'm your wife.
Right.
Dad, come back. Don't you remember me? I'm your dear son." And you're going, wait, you people are taking me for a ride. There's no memory of that thing. And so the desire to remember it has to come from something so far away, so abstract. Something in the person tells them, maybe they're right.
Yes.
Maybe they're not trying to fleece me.
So then that person, the amnesiac, gives his little willingness. And you don't know what that does to the nerve patterns, that something says,
well, dreams themselves, when you wake up.
It's like that.
If you wake up in the morning and you say, I never remember my dreams, there's no way you're going to remember your dream.
Right.
But often, if you wake up and you say, okay, I want to remember that dream. I know it's back there somewhere. You can even tell yourself, more than anything else, I want to remember that dream. It does float back to the surface.
Yeah. So it's the same with the mind of God.
Paragraph 3. To remember is merely to restore your mind to what is already there. You do not make what you remember. You merely accept again what is already there, but was rejected. The ability to accept truth in this world is the perceptual counterpart of creating in the kingdom. God will do His part if you will do yours, and His return in exchange for yours is the exchange of knowledge for perception. Nothing is beyond His will for you, but signify your will to remember Him, and behold, He will give you everything but for the asking. But signify your will to remember Him, and behold, ! He will give you everything but for the asking. This is like the prodigal son thing again. If the prodigal son were committed to proving that he could make it on his own, and he were committed to not looking like a fool in front of his family, so he would not go back, he never would have gone back. He never would have found.
Right.
I mean, I told you that, the experience I had when we first moved to Boulder, and I decided I was going to be a Zen laborer.
Oh, yeah.
And I cut myself off from these businesses that were sending me work. I mean, it was gravy train work. I mean, I was making anywhere from $50 to $100 an hour doing renderings, architectural design work. And it wasn't until maybe 10 years later that I got, and I cut them off and said, oh, well, you guys, I'm moving away, far away, knowing full well that I didn't know, okay? I dissociated myself from reality. I dissociated that, no, this firm and that firm, they want to send me stuff. I arbitrarily chunked that relationship to what? Prove that I was somehow going to be a Zen laborer?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, a few minutes of Zen labor, and I realized, the other thing is a lot better.
Yeah.
The thing I rejected.
You are the prodigal son at that point.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So you want to return to remembering the truth of yourself and God, which are the same.
And recognizing I don't have a Do you have I can't believe you have a sense of what that would be.
Well, I do from that one experience. I do. It is not like it's lost in
Well, I had my little experience too, and it doesn't help me. How come yours helps you?
I don't know. Maybe you're not willing. I don't know.
All I would have, if I got my little thing, all I would have is basically an extended hallucination. Of where everyone knows each other and everyone's in on a common joke and people are kind of weightless and everything's happy and copacetic. That's what I would have, which is fine. But I don't know. To be honest with you, right now as we sit here, I don't want to live that way. To be honest with you, I mean, it's as joyful, quote unquote, as it was, there was a frightening component to it.
Well, and that's
you didn't have it though.
I did not.
But you clung to yours and you paid for it. I didn't cling to mine.
Well, I know.
Not to compare enlightened experiences. Show me yours.
The thing of it is that I wasn't afraid of it. It was an answer to a prayer, actually. I mean, I was not in a good way before that time. Not that it didn't lead me down a very squirrely path ultimately, because I thought that I was following the guidance that was being given to me. And it's a cautionary tale about how can you know that you're getting correct guidance. And the Course repeatedly says you will know because it brings you peace and joy, comfort. It will bring a sense of these things as you go through following your willingness following God. Well, I didn't have those later on. I thought I was following it, but I had some senses of fear, anxiety, and stuff about what I was doing. Anyway, but the overall experience for me, I would welcome it to come back.
But it brings up one issue of the creeping nature of self-awareness. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've ever, let me put it this way. I've been involved in it where I'm doing some activity X. Mm-hmm. I begin it in a certain neutral frame of mind. And as I go along, my attitude towards what I'm doing starts to degrade slowly. And then other things, each time I experience a degradation of my attitude towards what I'm doing. In other words, I get moody. Mm-hmm. I get impatient. Mm-hmm. This other thing happens that doesn't seem right. I don't like the way this turned out. Or I don't look forward to doing this next thing. Whatever it is, my experience started neutral. It begins to degrade. I almost don't notice it degrading, even though I'm experiencing it. Okay. I don't notice it because I'm telling myself the whole time that it's going to get normal again, that I'm in this and it's a temporary thing, not realizing that maybe it's because of hunger mm-hmm. or because of exhaustion, different things. Mm-hmm. The whole baby's, was it tired, wet, angry, hungry, whatever it is. But as a person, when an experience begins to degrade, we're built to be the frog in the boiling pot that we don't notice.
Yeah.
So that in your situation, you had your enlightened situation, not to tell you what your experience was, but then you went up and you were in the boiling frog moment. Because you had a continuum of like, I love my experience. I want that experience. I'm going, and so then the next relationship, let's say, promises more of that.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, it did.
And so the boiling frog thing started happening.
Yeah, that I didn't realize that it wasn't working that way for me. And which went first? My lack of belief in the guidance and what was going on, or my fears actually were blocking it, and I wasn't calling it fear. I was calling it excitement or something. I was calling it something else, but it actually was fear.
Okay, just for a second, self-awareness. How does that relate to any of this? So I think that there's something important there about knowing what you're trying to label for yourself in your own terminology. What is it I'm experiencing? What am I going through?
Well, interestingly enough, I think it's really odd that I had started doing the course during that time and everything. And had I actually not taken on, I get it, I know everything now, I don't need the course anymore. If I had opened up to the first chapter and noticed that...
Oh, you did that?
No, I did not. If I had...
Yeah.
That talks about revelation, and
right.
That is a temporary opening of awareness, of the unification of yourself with God.
But did you actually think that because you went through a certain experience that you were sort of like illumined?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's where we're different.
Yeah, absolutely.
I never thought I was illumined.
Yeah, no, I thought that I knew everything and everyone else was asleep. I really went through my days going, how come...
Oh, Joanna, don't you know the danger?
Yeah, right. Well, there is a danger, because if you're not aware of what's really going on, then the ego starts to come in and claim it as its own.
Right. And
there is a sense of self-righteousness that comes in, that you're better than everybody, or you've been chosen or something. This is specialness that comes in. And the awareness is available to everybody. It's not specialness. It's just happened to be some kind of split of the mind that allowed for an opening, that allowed for the veil to go down for a little while. But I definitely was in a fearless state for a couple of weeks almost, maybe 10 days. And when the fear started to return, I almost said, no, that can't be. And as I told you, it happened because I thought I was going to be late. It had to do with a time orientation. I felt like I was living outside of time for a period of what we would call time.
Right.
I mean, the calendar's changing, the sun is rising and setting and things
right.
like that. But I was living my days in a sense of timelessness. So when I had a deadline or something at work, or I had something that happened, and I had the thought that I wasn't going to make it on time, I felt that first little clench of fear. And from there, it all just started to descend. It all started to fall apart, little by little. So, I mean, everyone has their experience in a different way. But if I had actually read the beginning, I would have recognized that this was not, this was not my ultimate moment, that, God is now going to lead me in every step of my way and everything else. It was a specific grace that came to me. I think it happens to a lot of different people in different ways. Sometimes it's a near-death experience and things like that. But at any rate, the remembrance was whole. It was whole. It was as if, how could I have forgotten? And in fact, one of my first thoughts was, don't ever let me forget again. I don't want to forget. That doesn't mean that I haven't forgotten the awareness of God being there all the time. But my remembrance is that it is there for me all the time. Just because I block it through being in my time-space orientation, which I consider the horizontal lines of life that we exist in here. We exist in time-space where everything seems linear on a horizontal line. When you experience the oneness, it's on a vertical line where there's only now. So there's the now of it. which I actually thought that the cross that Jesus was put on, whatever that is, the tree plus the cross beam, was a perfect analogy of a man who lived both in the horizontal, what we considered through time-space, and the vertical, which was his oneness with his Father at all time. His remembrance was always there. So I consider the cross actually a good symbol, but not a symbol of being ultimately the ultimate sacrifice and continued crucifixion, which we tend to put ourselves through as an ego-based being, but rather as a place of remembering that even though I experience myself in a day-to-day movement where I age and all these things happen and time goes by and all of a sudden at some point that's over and you die. That's my horizontal experience. There's also the opportunity at every moment to have the vertical experience where now is experienced, now is experienced, now is experienced now. So it's still, as we read in the prior chapter, the desire to desire holy. And we had this discussion about desiring holy. What does that look like? Well, I have to desire holy to be in the wholeness. And I have to understand that that is my little willingness. In a way, my desiring holy without having any reservations, which I have to be honest about, that usually I do have reservations about something, about when I desire holy, what's up for me? Well, something is, something comes up. But if I desire holy, then I'm going to let in the Holy Spirit to make that bridge between me, which is appearing as separate, to the whole, which is whole. And obviously I can't be outside of God because God is all. But I do experience myself as not part of that whole in most moments. And if I get quiet enough, I can experience glimpses of the peace and the joy that God is. I could say, well, I wish it was there all the time, but it can't be based on wishes. It has to be my desiring it holy. And more I have to desire it holy.
Yeah, the self-honesty of where you are at any given second.
Mm-hmm.
Paragraph 4, when you attack, you are denying yourself. You are specifically teaching yourself that you are not what you are. Your denial of reality precludes the acceptance of God's gift because you have accepted something else in its place. If you understand that this is always an attack on truth, and truth is God, you will realize why it is always fearful. If you further recognize that you are part of God, you will understand why it is that you always attack yourself first. If you further recognize that you are a part of God, you will understand why it is that you always attack yourself first. You attack yourself.
Because I'm afraid of truth. Truth, it says you always attack truth. It's always an attack on truth, and truth is God. So it becomes an attack on God, which becomes an attack on my true self. So I'm not allowing then for the truth to be revealed.
Well, I guess when I'm in a situation to where I'm attacking, in whatever form, first of all, there has to be the self-awareness to know that I am in an attack mode. It can take the form of a subtle grievance or a subtle criticism or an irritation, boredom. You can take all these different forms, many of them almost so innocuous that we don't even pay attention. But that would be the attack. And I have to realize in those moments, I am denying myself. I'm specifically in those moments teaching myself. It's as though I'm instructing myself in the ways that I am not what I truly am.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually in a schoolroom. And when I have minor irritations, boredom, self-criticism, other criticism, various things, which happens all the time, happens a lot, and it can creep up. And sometimes I can be deeply in it and not even be aware. It can take the form of grandiosity. It can take,
Yes.
of just thinking I'm bigger than I am.
Mm-hmm.
or more important than I am, whatever. And when I experience any of those states, but it has to be the desire to know it, and then to be self-aware that I'm going through it, and it's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, but just to be self-aware, I can realize I'm in a classroom of the ego. I'm teaching myself that I'm not what I truly am. It doesn't mean I can't get out of the classroom. It's just a good thing to know.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I know that when I experience certain kinds of self-criticism, I'm aware of it. I can feel it. I can feel how dreadful it is.
Right.
And all I have is what you were calling, what the Course calls the little willingness. That's all that's there, is a willingness to see it differently. And there's no guarantee there for me that it's going to change. But if I'm honest, it does lead to a softness. And as I was saying in that last one, when I said at the end that let's say, pay the price for doing the Course in Miracles, my experience of it goes something like this. I have a strong ego. I have a strong sense of self-direction. I want things to go a certain way. And then they don't go a certain way. And then the real motive behind that strong self-direction exposes itself, which is a sense of smallness, and that I want to rise above. I want to prove myself to the world, to myself, to others. And when I go through that, and I'm not proving it to myself, it's not coming across. I'm not succeeding. I'm failing. Then I collapse, and it surfaces as kind of a depression that lingers. And when I first go into the depression, I want to blame somebody for it. I want to blame somebody, some circumstance. I go on the hunt for somebody to blame for this situation. The Course is saying that whole situation is I'm willingly in a school, and I can just say, Holy Spirit, teach me in this. And that's all I really have. That's all I have.
Which means that it's an opportunity for me to take a moment and say, Holy Spirit, help me here, because obviously I need to see something differently. My internal nature is churning. My internal nature is sad. My internal nature is something. I'm forgetting who I am completely here. And in all honesty, sometimes you got to go through the complete devastation where you're on your knees and you're crying and everything else before something in yourself gives to where you want to give up your idea of what's going on.
Well, in the crying, the crying, depressions, even deflationary things, things. It's what it feels like when structures go down.
Yeah.
When a structure, the walls of Jericho thing. If because of a spiritual practice, I'm assailing the what do they call it, the ironclad walls of myself. I'm trying to.
That's good.
Anyway, I'm trying to address my armoring. I'm trying to deal with armoring and put my armor down. Not be such a warrior knight at war against the world. If I'm trying to soften this, it can feel, as I said before, it feels dangerous and things like that, but the feeling within it isn't, depending on the person, it's often not going to be elation. Now, a person who is very burdened by their armoring or burdened by their sense of self-defense, they're burdened by it, then I'd say yes, they could experience a sense of elation of laying down their armor,
Yeah.
But, the perfect movie for this is The Fisher King with Robin Williams.
Yeah.
Where he's a crazy man in a dump, and wow, he's almost Superman. He's all powerful. He's all enthusiastic. He's got a great attitude, and he can do all these amazing things. But when he taps into what got him there, to this powerful position, the horrible traumatic circumstance that he went through, when he taps into that and remembers it, he crumbles, and he can hardly function anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that that's a decent illustration for what can happen. Of losing your feeling that you have all these tools available. They become empty to you.
Right.
Okay, paragraph 5. All attack is self-attack. It cannot be anything else. Arising from your own decision not to be what you are, it is an attack on your identification. Attack is thus the way in which your identification is lost, because when you attack, you must have forgotten what you are. And if your reality is God's, when you attack, you are not remembering him. This is not because he is gone, but because you are actively choosing not to remember him. Paragraph 6. If you realized the complete havoc this makes of your peace of mind, you could not make such an insane decision. You make it only because you still believe it can get you something you want. It follows then that you want something other than peace of mind, but you have not considered what it must be. Yet the logical outcome of your decision is perfectly clear if you will only look at it. By deciding against your reality, you have made yourself vigilant against God and his kingdom. And it is this vigilance that makes you afraid to remember him. So I've put myself at odds with my sense of self, my reality. So I have to understand, and ironically, when I'm on a certain kind of a jag or an agenda or a mission to accomplish and it doesn't go well, or it does go well and it's less than I thought, or whatever the deal is, is to realize that I've been actively engaged in a forgetting, which is an aggressive act. It's basically an attack on God.
Which is on yourself.
But first on myself. First on myself.
Kind of both simultaneous.
Yeah, right. It's a simultaneous. And because I'm in that attack, so my question on it is, this is verbal, what I just said. It's a verbal explanation. What is the experience of it? What's my experience of it? What's your experience of the attack on yourself, the attack on God, where you sacrifice peace of mind for something you know not, and your vigilance against God and the kingdom?
Well, that's the witness, is that your lack of peace of mind is the witness that you've made the attack. That's why you're experiencing whatever kind of upset there is. So when there is a peace of mind, then you know that you've let down your guard, and you're allowing and you're willing to see God's kingdom and to see yourself.
But if I go back to, let's say, conference rooms or something where I'm making a presentation or doing things, wow, there's a very shiny sense of how great I am. Really. I mean, if I'm honest about it. And the thing is, the whole room is filled with that. It's not like anybody's going to condemn me for that. The room is built out of those egos that are trying to accomplish that very shiny moment.
Right.
So there's nothing, quote unquote, wrong with it. In fact, there's a whole lot right with it in the professional sense. However, it can't possibly offer peace of mind. It can't offer memory of being in the mind of God. All it can offer me is a teaching that I'm separate from everybody else.
Right. And that your difference is somehow above them or whatever, somehow you brought the...
And sure enough, the opposite becomes revealed, for sure. I mean, like I told my daughter just the other day, turned 60, I said, sweetie, what happens is you turn 60 years old and suddenly you go, oh, it's over.
Yeah, well, you're insignificant in the world.
In the world you played in.
Yeah.
In the world you played in, who cares? You're out of the picture. Nobody knows. You're not remembered. There are no plaques up. I don't have a building named after me. I mean, not that I ever wanted it.
No,
I'm just saying, you go away. And all the things that you did take on extremely relative value, not an absolute value. Yeah. Now, it doesn't mean the absolute values weren't there in my interactions with people, because I wasn't a schmuck.
No, and whenever an extension was given, the interesting thing is that, the times that I was working and everything, just as, the office manager or whatever. I swear, my work had nothing to do with the work that I did on paper to keep the office running a certain way or whatever. It was always the magic that comes along with relieving someone of some burden. And that includes the copier or whatever else that suddenly is working while they have a deadline.
No, really, in your own mind. And in reality, you've got a cape on and a skin-tight suit, and you're running around saving people all day long.
Yeah, and so, if I was to reflect on those times in my life and everything else, I recognize it was the times I was after hours where I end up talking to someone in the doorframe of their office, and I recognize that they're going through something with either the boss or whatever, and they're willing to talk to me. And so work was, it looks like one thing, but the real work that's happening has to do with the in-between stuff that has to do with me relating to someone else that allows for an extension to happen, where it brings somebody some relief in their life, or vice versa for myself, where somebody reaches over and says, don't worry about it. And, you tried to give a speech and it just failed. They go, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. And at any rate, there's those moments that's when life really happens, and people don't recognize it's not about being employee of the month, or that you suddenly brought in the greatest new design into your design firm or something else. It's actually the thing that brought joy to somebody because something got accomplished for someone else, even the client, that put them in a state of joy that something got done in a way that they wanted to.
I just want to point out that that you're in the same racket that I was describing.
Okay,
the
go
same
ahead.
way, except one removed.
Okay, what's that mean?
Well, it means that you can rest assured that you saved me. Okay, I gave the presentation. I was able to do that because you saved me on the copy machine, or you saved me on delivering the thing to FedEx on time. You saved me on operating the fax machine, or whatever. You saved me, so that when I thrust my arms up in the air, jumping up and down, you can, in your mind, thrust your arms up in the air and jump up and down. Because
I didn't, though.
You and I know, but I didn't either. I'm trying to make a point.
Okay. All right.
What I'm trying to say is, nobody gets out. As Jim Morrison said, nobody gets out of here alive. Nobody gets out of here without.
All I'm trying to say is that there is the moments.
A world separate.
Yeah, there is the world of relating that has nothing to do with the accomplishment that you think that you're there for.
Exactly.
That's all. No. That's the only difference I was trying to make.
No, I understand.
And I'm not saying I'm great because I did those things or anything. I'm just saying that, I think that my work is about XYZ, about getting things done.
Yeah, you've got a job description, and then you have this other social worker, psychologist, general fix-it
I know, but I've
person.
seen you yourself on the phone with people and you're not even in the office, where you've spent more than a half hour or so talking about things, and it made their day.
No, I know it made their day, but I also, as I tend to do, and I'm not really being devil's advocate. I'm really just trying to be honest.
Yeah.
There comes a moment where I'm not in a situation to where somebody's going to listen to me.
Yeah.
And then I'm caught by myself, reflecting only on myself, and it makes me very sad that I no longer have that importance, that input, that ability to make a difference. It's not there anymore.
Well, I agree.
So now I'm caught with myself.
Right, and I agree that it can still just be an ego trap about things.
And I don't want to say just an ego trap, because it's the glue. It's what makes the world work. I'm not detracting from it. I'm just saying that, according to the Course in Miracles, as an absolute sort of a teaching, when it's all said and done, there is a moment to where I'm collapsed in on myself and recognizing that my work was straw, so to speak, as Thomas Aquinas said. But I have to realize it didn't matter. You didn't need to do anything anyway.
Yeah.
But before you get there, you have to say, my work didn't matter. And then you say, you didn't have to do it anyway. There are these stages of realization. Do you think?
Yes. No, I do agree with that. And that many times, if it was struggling to get something done on time for something with work, And then you find that the project is over and you're like, what the heck was that all about? And then the job goes away because mergers and acquisitions happened and everything folds up and you're just like,
oh yeah,
what the heck was that all about?
Talk about a circus act.
Yeah, you just wonder what you were up to. And those are identity crisis moments a lot of times, because you thought you put your best efforts forward and everything was working, and then no, it's a collapse. And nowadays the collapses are happening through wars, through I can't tell you how many floods have happened in recent months and years right now. That people are displaced all over the place. So people's realities are being uprooted.
Absolutely upended reality.
Constantly.
Oh my God.
And I feel blessed right now that is not happening in my life. But you realize that the sense of self that's tied to place and people and things like that can be so easily overturned by circumstances that are outside your control, that it's important to have solid footing with that sense that there is something beyond me that that's wholly I'm attached to, that I can't be separate from, that can get me through anything that is going to be an upending in my life. It doesn't mean that there's not going to be trouble, and doesn't mean that I won't experience fear and anxiety and whatever else that goes along with those upendings. It just means that it's good to have a foundation and a footing of at least beginning to experience my oneness with the all that is me, that allows me to go through those with the knowledge that this too will come to pass, and I will remember myself again. I will remember.
No, that's beautiful. And there's actually scientific studies that people that believe in God and have even a churchy practice have better vital statistics than people who do not.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
So anyway, that's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.